The story begins. Lehan is seen checking the condition of DeSo's body. Lehan said, "Normally the wound needs about 4 months of treatment to heal optimally. But it seems like your wound will completely heal within a week if you don't push yourself too hard." While laughing, Lehan said, "The youth you feel is a gift, so don't waste it." After saying that, Lehan immediately left him because Lehan wanted to meet Hankol. In his heart, DeSo muttered, "Did he mean the refreshing sensation when I was practicing the 3 basic sword techniques?" Behind his sadness, his 2 servants were very happy because DeSo would recover soon in these weeks. With annoyance, DeSo said, "Because my first plan had failed. Then I have to make a second plan so that I can get out of this cursed clan. I should better understand the situation of this clan so that my plan can run smoothly." Then, DeSo saw some of the people around him had been training very hard. Was it just me who didn't do anything in this clan? I think it's normal because there are only hard workers in a place where strength is considered as high as power. Very different from other sects. In the NamGung Clan, it has been divided into 8 martial units that determine the hierarchy in this clan. This reflects the will of my father, who doesn't like anything complicated. For him, strength is everything. And also, whatever the strongest person says is the truth, even it is absolute. But for me, it is not important, because sooner or later, I will definitely leave this place. A few moments later, DeSo has arrived in front of a gate while laughing. He said, "There is no more optimal place to make a failed plan succeed than this place. This is the training hall that I have to visit every day for a whole week. But when I remember the embarrassing experience I received in this place, I relive it in the past. Honestly, it was very painful. So for today, I will just lurk and observe the situation secretly." However, DeSo was very surprised when he saw that the hall had no one in there. What happened? Even though I know this place allows anyone who wants to train freely, even if it is only alone. However, DeSo realized the presence of several people who began to arrive into the hall. Very quickly, DeSo immediately hid while listening to what they were talking about. They proudly said that the sword skills of a strong second son were very great, and that was what was called the best art. Their extraordinary movements and the glint of the swords as they cut through the air were amazing. In his heart, DeSo said it turns out they had all visited my second brother. Then one of them said again, "Have you heard a rumor that the youngest son will train with us in this place? There are even rumors that the leader personally took the youngest son away on the day of the ceremony. However, they said that his talent was very bad. Starting from agility, strength, even his ki was very weak. However, one of them denied it. He said, 'We should not say that before seeing it directly. Have you never heard a legend of 30 days, 60 days, and also 90 days? Or in short 369. It was a legendary story of the 3 dragons in this cult.' On the other hand, DeSo said, 'How much longer must I suffer because of the rumors that came from the past?' 369 is the amount of time it took for my 3 brothers to graduate from the training hall. All disciples in this clan must enter the training hall, whether they are direct descendants or not, even if they are from outsiders. But they can only become official disciples of this clan if they graduate from the training hall. But the most basic way to graduate from the training hall is through the annual assessment. Then another way is to fight and defeat the cadets inside the training hall through sparring, and it is called endless sparring. Then stand above them with a landslide victory. My eldest brother took 30 days to graduate from the training hall. Then my second brother took 60 days, and the last one, he took 90 days. It's not as easy as it sounds. This is even crazier than any madness ever existed. Everyone gathered in the training hall. They are extremely talented geniuses compared to the outsiders. Sure enough, on the other side, one of them said, "Yesterday, I fell asleep while I was holding my stance." Then the person next to him said that he had swung his sword for tens of thousands of times. Even I have also put weights on my head and feet. But one of them said, "Are you guys stupid if that's all you do? So when will you be able to catch up with the seniors? Just so you know, I've been maintaining my stance while swinging my sword for hundreds of thousands of times." Hearing their chatter, DeSo said, "They are idiots because all they have in their heads is martial arts and strength." But behind their laughter, there are some people who have bowed down. Without any spirit in their souls, DeSo wondered if they were the ones who failed the betting assessment. I understand the sadness they felt after failing the assessment, even though they had tried very hard to get the best results. Suddenly DeSo realized he said I shouldn't worry about others. What I should think about is myself. Then DeSo immediately left the training hall quietly, so that they all wouldn't see him. However, DeSo immediately fell silent. He said, "But still, I've waited for 10 years for my plan. Do I have to wait another year? My first plan has been thwarted by that damn healer." Even though it was a plan that I had carefully prepared. With a sharp gaze, DeSo said, "Just wait until the annual assessment begins. I will make sure it will be the biggest failure." Time passed so quickly, and 7 days later, DeSo was seen practicing by swinging his sword. Slowly but surely DeSo felt that his ki energy had increased, but if it was just like this, then I have to swing this sword all day long for 100 years to gain 30 years of cultivation. No wonder the 3 basic sword techniques are among the 3rd grade martial arts. But I can practice this 3rd grade martial art without worrying about what others think. Even I feel very refreshed after this practice, so there is no reason for me not to do it. Before I can relax, I am forcibly dragged to the training grounds without any rest. And it is time. Soon someone will come to pick me up to take me to the training ground. Sure enough, it doesn't take long. It seems the gate has opened because someone has entered DeSo Castle. While saluting, he said, "Oh, young master, how are you? This is our first meeting since the welcoming ceremony. The man is the second strategist named Jack Yon. It is said that when Jack Yon was 5 years old, he had already memorized several famous books. Then, at the age of 7, he had also memorized several extraordinary books. He even passed the official state exam at the age of 8, and he was crowned as a child prodigy. At that time, everyone thought that he would be the youngest minister ever. But for some reason, he disappeared from the face of this earth at the age of 10. I couldn't believe that such a great man had met me in person. When I heard Jack Yon asking if DeSo was well, DeSo answered that he had fully recovered. Jack Yon just laughed. He said, "You don't have to speak so politely to me. I am indeed the second strategist in this clan. But my position is not worthy of being given this much respect by a direct descendant of the leader." DeSo said, "If that is what you want, may I ask something?" While pointing, DeSo asked on whose orders Jack Yon found him directly. Jack Yon laughed again, and he said that he came to face him on the orders of the strategist. DeSo was immediately very surprised because the person who sent Jack Yon was a master poet named Illo. What I know is that there is a rule that a master poet cannot be part of any group in this clan. So what is the reason he sent a strategist to meet me? DeSo muttered in annoyance. My head felt like it was going to break into pieces. I shouldn't have thought so hard on such a short conversation. Then DeSo asked again, "Did Jack Yon come here because of today's welcoming ceremony?" Jack Yon just laughed. He said, "You're right. The brilliance of the direct descendants is as different as night and day. And it's not like those other idiots. That's why I'd rather stay in this clan than any other cult. Because those idiot trash have to be explained one by one, until they truly understand. What do you think? Shouldn't they be able to understand something without having to be explained every minute detail? I'm very busy with a lot of work. But because this is an order from the strategist I respect, so I still came here, even though trusting someone is very dangerous." With sparkling eyes, Jaekyeon continued his words. "But after I saw the young master, it feels like my eyes have been washed after seeing people who always worship their muscles for so long. So, young master, can I ask you something?" DeSo became nervous. "I don't know why the person in front of him has become that crazy," Jaekyeon excitedly said. "Do you have the intention to conquer the world of martial arts together with me? If I'm being honest, why I entered this clan is to see how I can destroy this cursed clan." Suddenly, DeSo was very surprised. He muttered, "Crazy bastard." Finally, I understand why everyone in this clan calls him a crazy person. Then DeSo asked whether Jaekyeon had ever asked the same thing to his three brothers. Jaekyeon answered, "Your eldest brother said that he could do it even without my help." Then your second brother said, "This is why a bastard who does nothing but read has absolutely no hope." And your third brother, he doesn't talk much, but he said to me that I'm a crazy person. In his heart, DeSo said, "What my three brothers said is true, that this bastard is a crazy person." Then DeSo asked Jaekyeon, "Does he have a plan to destroy this clan?" In a low voice, Jaekyeon said, "There's no way I can do anything. Even though I really hate to admit it, this clan is perfect." Then DeSo said, "If it continues like this, I will be late for the welcoming ceremony. So stop talking nonsense and let's go." But Jaekyeon still forced DeSo to answer him. Does he want to bring down this clan with him? With annoyance, DeSo said, "You can take this cursed clan, because I'm not interested at all." Jaekyeon looked immediately shocked when he heard what DeSo said. In fact, he just kept quiet when DeSo called him repeatedly, because DeSo didn't want to be late to attend the welcoming ceremony. While walking after him, Jaekyeon muttered, "Trash clan, damn clan, lowly clan that only contains idiots." Jaekyeon even said that over and over again. In his heart, DeSo said, "It's true that that person is called crazy. I shouldn't hang out with him." A few moments later, they both arrived at the training ground. However, everyone there immediately looked at them with a flat gaze, after hearing Jaekyeon, who continued to give an oath to the clan. After Jaekyeon recovered and laughed, he said, "Nice to meet you. I am an investigator for these two clans, and my name is Jaekyeon." You can see that they all immediately became tense after finding out that Jaekyeon was an investigator. In his heart, DeSo said, "I don't know why everyone became tense after finding out that he was a high-ranking official, but I'm sure they'll realize that Jaekyeon is just a madman." Then Jaekyeon said that the person with him is the youngest son. He will join you in this training. Immediately, everyone looked at him with sharp eyes, as if they didn't want to be rivaled just because DeSo is the youngest son of the NamGung Clan. While laughing, DeSo said in his heart, "Their stares are too excessive. I'm sure I'll make them disappointed in just a few days." However, DeSo was very surprised when Jaekyeon said that he was a great man who would conquer this clan, which was filled with only idiots. "Let me introduce the future greatest and strongest master of this clan." Suddenly, everyone there was very angry. They even did not hesitate to kill anyone who dared to insult the NamGung Clan. Immediately, DeSo immediately punched him very hard while saying, "You bastard! What did you say? I will kill you if you say anything wrong." DeSo's punch was so strong that Jaekyeon immediately lost consciousness. Then DeSo said, "You don't have to pay attention to what this crazy person said, so continue your training." After that, DeSo pulled him, who was still unconscious, out of the training area. A few moments later, DeSo was seen taking Jaekyeon to the medical room, which room was Lehan's workplace. Then Lehan checked her eyes. He said she had fainted. Judging from her condition, it seemed she had been suddenly attacked by someone she knew. "Based on your slightly bruised right hand, I'm sure you're the one who did this." Laughing, DeSo said, "As expected of a great healer. You can tell that easily just by looking at her. But I want to ask whether you're going to stay here or not." Hearing DeSo's question, Lehan said, "I'm thinking about it. In this place, I am very happy. I can get alcohol and also a bed." While looking at DeSo, Lehan continued his words. "Not only that, I have also received entertainment that makes me feel more at home in this place." It seems that DeSo was just silent. He was still wondering and did not understand what Lehan said. Not long after they separated, because DeSo wanted to continue his first training at the beginning of the training. In his heart, DeSo said, "It's so strange that I remember that in my past life, the healer didn't stay here. Is it possible that the future I'm going through will change? I don't know. I don't care. Even if the healer is here or not, it won't be able to ruin my plans. so I have to focus on doing my best and leave this damned cult. Jaekyun, who had just regained consciousness after being treated by Lehan, woke up calling DeSo's name repeatedly. Beside him, Lehan asked how his body was feeling, and if it still hurt. However, Lehan looked confused when Jaekyun said it was his first time. Then, Jaekyun proudly said again, "An abnormality has been implanted in my soul. In all my life, I have found the only light that will change this stupid, cursed clan to shine more like the sun god. Oh, great physician, this is a dream that will come true." Lehan responded by saying that his brain was the one that had become abnormal for saying that. Then saluting, Jaekyun said, "I apologize for being late in introducing myself to you. I am the second strategist working for this clan." Lehan just laughed and said, "So, you are the person, the ambitious crazy person that Alo said before." In his heart, Lehan said, "What I see from the deep understanding sparkling in his eyes, it seems like this person is not an ordinary person. Just like how naturally talented individuals had surrounded Hankol. I wonder if the same thing will happen to his youngest son." Jaekyun said, "It seems we must part ways, as I have many matters to attend to. This damned clan will not function without me, even if it doesn't seem like it." Laughing, Jaekyun muttered, "Oh, young master, just wait a little longer if we come up with a plan like this together. Then we will rule this damned clan. Even the world will bow to us." After seeing Jaekyun's behavior, Lehan said, "Something abnormal has been said by a strange, crazy person like him." A few moments later, DeSo appeared, having just entered the training room. Then DeSo said, "Everyone has begun their individual training. There was no teacher or set method in this place, as their futures were determined by evaluation, so they all had no choice but to try their hardest." DeSo decided to begin his training by grabbing a wooden sword from the training room. DeSo also sensed that some people were staring at him with disdain. In his heart, DeSo said, "Even if they look at me like that, I don't care because this is what I want. I want you to stare at me until you're satisfied, and I'll show you how useless I am in this clan." Indeed, they were very annoyed after DeSo only performed 3 basic sword techniques. Tsh! I was so excited to see it, but he only performed something that couldn't even be considered basic. DeSo laughed again, saying, "If they saw me perform only 3 basic sword techniques every day, I'm sure everyone would know that I have poor skills. Then, I'll show them once again at the annual evaluation that I'm a piece of trash that can't be recycled at all." At first, I was worried that my plan would be ruined by that crazy bastard. But if this was how it was going to go, there was no way my plan could fail. Then DeSo returned home, laughing triumphantly, knowing his plan would soon succeed. After opening the gate, DeSo asked his servants to prepare all the food, as he was extremely hungry. However, DeSo immediately froze as soon as he walked through the gate. Inside, Jaekyun was waiting for him, enjoying the food prepared by DeSo's servants. While shouting, DeSo said, "You bastard! Why are you here and what are you doing in my house?" In a different place, Lehan was heard saying in a high tone, "Oh, old man, do you know that the crazy kid you have been taking care of is now forming a plan to bring down Keelan Namgung?" While laughing, Ilo said, "That kid is indeed unusual, but besides that kid, who else will take over my many jobs and replace me in taking care of him? Everyone should know that if someone could succeed me as a strategist, that child is the only one capable of succeeding me." Hearing that, Lehan said again, "I understand that child has abilities, but his mindset is very dangerous." Ilo responded by saying, "Don't worry too much. Even though he's crazy, he's a good child. Did you know that being too smart is a curse for me? It's because nothing ever deviates from my expectations. Boredom makes life difficult for me to get through each day. But just when I thought I would die of boredom, I met NamGung Bigwang and NamGung Hankol. That's when I could see a new side of this world. Maybe for the second strategist, the world he felt was boring, until finally he found true pleasure in this world." The story moves with DeSo's annoyance saying, "Didn't I say that I'm not interested in this clan? So why are you still following me?" Jaekyun also said, "I also really hate this damned clan whose contents are just a bunch of idiots. So it's certain that the enemy of my ally is my enemy." Responding to his ranting, DeSo said, "I don't hate the NamGung Clan at all." Jaekyun was immediately shocked and said, "Didn't you say you would leave this small clan to shake the whole world?" DeSo looked very annoyed. DeSo said, "You bastard! Since when have I ever said that? Just so you know, I really like the NamGung Clan. It's just that in his heart," DeSo muttered, "what I don't like is staying here because in the future my stomach will be stabbed." With a sharp gaze full of intimidation, Jaekyun asked DeSo why he wanted to leave the NamGung Clan. DeSo thought that he had to choose the right words to answer that question. Then DeSo tried to find out what Jaekyun had planned. Then DeSo asked Jaekyun what he was really planning. Hearing DeSo's question while laughing, Jaekyun said, "What I want is to turn this world upside down with the power of the two of us." DeSo was heard repeatedly saying no when Jaekyun repeatedly persuaded him to overthrow the NamGung Clan. If so, how about we start from the smallest thing by overthrowing the Solon Temple? DeSo immediately shouted that it was impossible because they were not followers of a demonic cult. Then in a serious tone, Jaekyun said, "I may act like this, but completely in my soul. I am part of the Orthodox vaccine. So never underestimate how holy my soul is." DeSo said in his heart, "I'm sure this crazy bastard must be a revolutionary. If we were in a war era, this bastard's talent would definitely shine. But right now, we are in a peaceful era, where the NamGung Clan rules the world. Only a crazy person like Jaekyun would want to cause trouble, especially when his target is the NamGung Clan." Jaekyun said while laughing, "Oh my lord, give me an order and I will destroy this very small Solon temple in one day. From today, you are my master, and I will strengthen my heart, body and soul, even my life to fight with you." DeSo also said that his dream was only a peaceful life, far from the word strength or martial arts. And if you want to quickly overthrow this clan, then join my eldest brother. However, Jaekyun responded by saying, "So you are a dragon who is still sleeping. That's why for the time being, you asked me not to cause trouble until you really wake up." DeSo also said, "This is a serious matter, and my true dream is to live on a beautiful mountain with clean water while harvesting crops." Hearing that, Jaekyun said, "The places with beautiful mountains are Mount Hua, Wudang, and also Shaolin. Then the places with clean water are the Yangtze and Yellow Rivers. Could it be that this is your plan to conquer them all? As expected of my lord, I did not expect that you already intend to conquer the territory and both water routes together." But suddenly Jaekyun immediately fell silent when he saw DeSo raising his hand right in front of his eyes. DeSo said, "I ask you to be patient." "So wait another year," Jaekyun said excitedly. "After that year, will we start our plan to rule this world?" In his heart, DeSo said, "Do whatever you want. Later you will realize that I am someone who does not match your expectations." A few months later, DeSo was seen practicing while swinging his wooden sword. From the other side, DeSo just listened to everyone there laughing at him, because DeSo was only able to practice with the 3 basic sword techniques. It was very sad. No wonder everyone called him the 3 basic idiot. It was because he was only able to master those techniques. Instead of feeling annoyed, DeSo just laughed and said, "This is very good. I have taken one step towards becoming a trash. But for some reason, I feel something is strange with my body." The ki that I had gathered by using the 3 basic sword techniques all day long suddenly spread throughout my body, even though the ki was only a little. On the other side, Jaekyun was seen running towards DeSo with full enthusiasm. Then Jaekyun said, "Oh my lord, did your training today go smoothly? If you are finished, let's go back, because the women have prepared side dishes that you really like." DeSo muttered. "He is a good person. He is also a positive person. Even he called me his master, even though everyone called me a useless 3-element fool." Then DeSo invited Jaekyun to go back and finish his training because he wanted to eat and rest. But the people who were laughing at DeSo immediately fell silent when Jaekyun stared at them with a sharp gaze. They couldn't even move at all. Their courage immediately shrank after seeing the gaze thrown by Jaekyun. Then, after looking at them, Jaekyun immediately ran to catch up with DeSo, who had already left. A few moments later, Jaekyun was seen offering a box of pills to DeSo and asking him to eat one of them. DeSo wondered what pill Jaekyun had given him this time. However, DeSo immediately choked when he heard that the pill he ate was a martial arts laser pill. DeSo asked where he got such a valuable pill. Jaekyeon also said the pill had been given directly by the head monk Solim to Kalen Namgung as a gift. In his heart, DeSo said, I can't believe that he can have it. Hopefully that crazy bastard didn't steal it from the Solemn temple. But suddenly, DeSo felt that his Kai was spreading throughout his body from the tip of his toes to the top of his head. DeSo said, this is not important because I will not learn any martial arts properly, so I don't care about what happens. However, on the other side, Jaekyeon was seen looking at him with a different look in his eyes. Who knows what he had planned to do to DeSo after giving him the pill? A few moments later, DeSo peeked out the gate. He tried to pay attention to the busyness of everyone there. Jaekyeon said, it seems like everyone is busy preparing themselves because tomorrow is the annual evaluation day. But is it okay for my master to be hanging around like this? While laughing, DeSo said, of course it won't be a problem because I have already done all my preparations thoroughly. Hearing that, Jaekyeon said, my master is indeed great. The time to shake this polar wanderer has finally arrived, and we will rule the world together. In his heart, DeSo said, actually, the one who will be shaken is you. I have gotten a new nickname while practicing with only 3 basic sword techniques for a year, namely the Fool of 3 Basics. In my past life, that nickname was a trash call. In fact, now I feel proud because it feels much better now. Then with full confidence, Jaekyeon said again, I have finished making a plan to wipe out the NamGung Clan. So let's overthrow that idiot martial god. Then we will turn this world upside down under our feet. DeSo muttered, talk as you like. I have already intended to lose in every match this time. The next day, DeSo was seen lining up with the other participants to take part in the annual evaluation. From the expressions of everyone who took part in this evaluation, they were all very tense. However, for me, this was not a problem, because I was prepared to mess everything up. Then the examiner was heard shouting to ask the participants to enter the evaluation area. Even though they felt nervous, they still walked confidently and prepared to accept the results they would get. Everyone was heard to be so excited and cheering when they saw the arrival of the participants. But when DeSo had arrived in the middle of the field, he was so surprised when he saw his father sitting casually on his saiga. Not only that made DeSo surprised, even his 3 brothers, and also the strategist Ilo, had been present to witness the annual evaluation. What happened? Is there something wrong? I'm sure in my past life, the people who witnessed the evaluation would not be this many. However, DeSo was very surprised when he saw Jaekyeon waving a flag with his face on it, and also a banner that said, there is no word of defeat for NamGung DeSo. While shouting, Jaekyeon said, for the revolution of the NamGung Clan, the light of the NamGung Clan, Mr. DeSo, the strongest martial artist, is the hope for the future of this clan. DeSo looked very embarrassed because Jaekyeon saw everyone staring at him with strange looks. Then the examiner said the annual evaluation will judge the participants solely on their abilities and will not involve any other external influences in any form. If none of your abilities are adequate, then none of you will pass this evaluation. Simply put, if all of your abilities are adequate, then all of you here will pass. There are 2 evaluation methods in total. The first is a sparring nomination. You may directly nominate someone to the center here to have a sparring match. If you stand out and attract attention, then you will be free to choose to enter the martial arts group you want, but you will only be given 1 chance to compete. So if you fail, then you have to prepare yourself again to take part in the evaluation next year. And there is also a second method. 1 participant will go up to the arena and compete 5 times, but the assessment will not be based on the results. However, the assessment will be given after the 5 matches are completed. This way, you will have more opportunities to show your abilities than the nomination matches. However, there is a possibility that you will be put in a squad that you do not want to be in. So be careful. Then the examiner said again, since all the explanations have been given, then we will start this annual evaluation right now. One of the participants in the annual evaluation had already stepped forward to begin his match. Then, pointing, he said, I request a match with the vice captain of the Heavenly Swordsmen, NamGung Teol. Cleol simply laughed, saying that the young man had made a good choice. Without further ado, Seol immediately jumped from his seat and headed up to the arena. Upon arriving, Seol said, "Oh, young man, I see your face is very familiar, so I was wondering what your real name is." The man casually said his name was NamGung Huan. On the other hand, DeSo was shocked to hear that the person was named Huan. In his heart, DeSo thought he was a swordsman who had joined the Heavenly Sword Corps. Before my regression, he was known as the Slayer, having once single-handedly slaughtered 100 enemies on the battlefield. Then Seol said, "Didn't you fail within 5 seconds after appointing me last year? Honestly, I really like your courage. Now I will give you a challenge. If you can hold me for 10 seconds, then I will appoint you as one of the Heavenly Sword Troops." Huan was seen very happy after hearing what Kyle said. But with a sharp gaze, Seol said, "Oh, young man, never think that 10 seconds will be easy for you to pass." Sure enough, Seol immediately jumped in to launch his first attack. Seol then said, "Just so you know, 10 seconds with me is like time standing still." Huan tried to remain calm and block Seol's sword attack. After putting some distance between them, Seol said, "Young man, your basic moves aren't bad, so let's have some fun." On the other hand, the other participants were all very surprised to see Huan able to withstand Seol's attack. However, DeSo was different. He just remained silent, because DeSo wasn't interested in martial arts. Then, Seol prepared his stance for a different attack. He said, "Oh, young man, can you withstand an attack like this?" After saying that, Seol immediately ran, brandishing his sword for a stabbing attack. Seeing the attack coming, Huan immediately raised his sword and prepared to block Seol's attack. Everyone who witnessed it wondered, what was Huan doing in this situation? He was wrong to raise his sword. However, DeSo was different, muttering. He had discarded 7 techniques that used the principle of speed, which was incompatible with balanced swordsmanship. Huan then created a new and perfect steel sword technique using the remaining 3 techniques. I never thought I'd see such a heavy sword technique. However, Huan's attack technique was unable to withstand Keel's power, and the tip of his sword broke. Laughing, Seol said, "Oh, young man, you have passed because you have shown me something truly amazing." However, after Kyle returned to his seat, he saw that his hands were shaking violently. Then Kyle said, "If that boy is properly trained, he will be able to become the most powerful swordsman on earth." The other 2 vice captains were heard saying, "That kid has an extraordinary talent, so no matter what, we must bring him to our side." On the other side, everyone was clearly nervous because their first fight was so terrifying. However, DeSo was thinking, he's indeed powerful, but is it necessary to use so much strength to block such an attack? If he swung his sword horizontally, I'm sure he could break the vice captain's attack. Laughing, DeSo said, "If the fight was just like that, I'm sure I could compete at that level too." The examiner then asked the next contestant to go up to the ring. However, after seeing no one wanted to go up first, he said he would choose them at random. However, everyone there was very surprised because DeSo had raised his hand so high. While laughing, DeSo said, "If they don't want to, then can I do it?" On the other hand, Jackyan was very excited because he did not expect that DeSo had bravely stood on the match arena. While shouting, Jackyan said, "Oh, young god, show them how great the martial arts that you have mastered." Moments later, Jackyan looked extremely upset. He hadn't expected DeSo to do what he had done in the arena. Sure enough, DeSo had intentionally taken his opponent's attack, knocking his wooden sword out of his grasp. Not only that, but DeSo also willingly took several of his opponent's attacks. After falling, DeSo said, "What a terrible disaster! I've tried several times, but I still can't beat that guy." Then, DeSo called out to Jackyan, who was standing at the side of the arena. Laughing, DeSo said, "Hey, second schemer, since I'm useless in martial arts, would you teach me how to become a literate?" After saying that, DeSo laughed out loud, filled with victory because the plan he had devised had worked so perfectly. Then, DeSo said, It's really unexpected that there are so many talented people in our clan, and it makes our best clan look so bright. Seeing what DeSo did, Hankel just kept quiet because he knew there was something different about his youngest son. However, it was different with everyone who saw DeSo's behavior. They said, "What I heard is that the youngest is indeed trash. He was even called the 3-point idiot." Hearing what they said, Jaekyun was very angry. He said, "The trash is your rotten eyeballs. How dare you talk like that? If you don't want to look like fools, then don't talk about something you don't know." DeSo proudly muttered, "I think my acting was perfect, so now I just have to wait to be kicked out of this competition arena." However, with a sharp gaze and a very heavy tone of voice, Hankel said, "This is really boring. I'm sure you all will agree with what I said." Suddenly, they all fell silent. Not even a single person dared to say a word that came out of their mouths. Even with just a glance, the entire room was enveloped in a terrifying aura. DeSo looked panicked, as he couldn't believe his father had said something like that, and it could ruin his plans. Hankel then remarked that kids these days are so lacking. They're not even fun to watch. How can we call ourselves the strongest clan when you act in this way? They all immediately fell silent after hearing what the leader said. But it was different with Jaekyun. While saluting, Jaekyun said, "What you said is indeed true. Therefore, I will propose an idea to you." Then Jaekyun continued his words. "I want to ask you for a duel between your sons directly in this place." After hearing Jaekyun's idea, they all fell silent, trying to think it through. DeSo, annoyed, muttered, "What the hell is he thinking when the situation gets like this? If I do that, my dantian will definitely burst again, just like in my previous life. So, what should I do?" Hankel immediately smiled, because she had found something that wasn't boring. Then, Hankel asked So if he wanted to compete against her youngest brother in the arena. "But I'm not forcing you. And you can say no if you don't want to compete against him. So I'll ask your brother." Immediately, So jumped from his seat and stood right in front of DeSo. Then So said, "You don't need to leave things like this to my brother." When Hankel wanted to ask DeSo about the match against his brother, DeSo immediately interrupted his father's words by saying, "Oh father, may I not do this match?" Hearing DeSo's request, Hankel said, "I'm not forcing you to do this. If you want to surrender, then surrender. But you must know, you must cut off one of your hands, and all your power in this clan will be revoked." Hankel asked So not to use his Kai energy, as they both possessed different strengths. DeSo thought to himself, "What a waste! Why has everything become so chaotic? All I want is a peaceful life." DeSo then glanced at Jaekyun, who was cheering him on. "This bastard! All of this happened because of him." Jaekyun enthusiastically said, "Young master, I've prepared a special stage for you, so enjoy it to your heart's content." Jaekyun thought to himself, "I already know everything. What I gave you yesterday wasn't a martial arts weakening pill. It was a martial arts strengthening pill, a single pill that can give you decades of Kai. However, your body won't change. I only know of one other person who possesses decades of Ki, a man with a supreme martial arts physique, NamGung Clan." Laughing heartily, Jaekyun said, "Trust me, I'll show them all your true prowess." It appeared that DeSo and his brother were already preparing for the match. So remarked, "This isn't just our first time crossing swords, it's also our first time speaking." DeSo thought to himself, "I hope he can defeat me in one strike, so this match can be over quickly." DeSo was shocked when So glared at him with a sharp gaze, as if harboring a grudge. Sure enough, So swung his sword and declared that he wouldn't hold back, even though DeSo was his younger brother. Instantly, the arena they were using to compete shook violently from So's attack. Despite the devastating attack, DeSo was still able to dodge it. DeSo muttered, "You bastard! Does he intend to kill me with such a powerful attack?" Annoyed, So said, "DeSo, even though you're my younger brother, your behavior is truly unseemly." In his heart, DeSo said, Are you stupid? If I didn't dodge that attack, I might have died. Then So said again, I can tell from all the duels you've had today that you have no interest in martial arts. DeSo proudly said, you've seen that, right? So how about we just end this fight, and this is my loss. While brandishing his sword, So said, today may be the last time you and I will clash swords, but believe me, I will give you something you will never forget. After saying that, So immediately swung his sword to slash DeSo. From the look on his face, it was clear that he was not holding back. It looked like DeSo was very panicked because DeSo realized that he would not be able to avoid the attack. DeSo then immediately spun his sword around, attempting to counter his brother's attack. He thought to himself, I'll try to block his attacks a few times and then deliberately catch them at the right time so they don't suspect anything. Sure enough, So was shocked when DeSo's counterattack hit both of his hands. Then DeSo spun his sword again and tried to block So's attack. However, DeSo didn't expect the attack to be so heavy. Feeling like a huge rock was crushing his body, he enthusiastically declared, although this attack is heavy, it's not something I can't handle. Instantly, DeSo used all his strength to counter the pressure So was exerting on him. Sure enough, So's sword slash deflected away from DeSo's target. Everyone present was shocked. They couldn't believe that the man they considered trash could fight the third son. Meanwhile, Jackyeon was shouting loudly, excited to see DeSo fighting so well. Then, in a flat tone, So said, DeSo, what did you just do? I'm sure you did something I don't know about. Hearing his brother's question, DeSo replied that he had only blocked the attack. Meanwhile, everyone who witnessed the attack exclaimed, I can't believe the youngest son was able to stop the attack launched by the third son. I know that the third young master's sword technique can cut through anything, even if they try to block it. And, if left unblocked, the technique would simply slice you open when you tried to dodge it. But what surprised me was that the youngest intentionally blocked it using only 3 basic sword techniques. DeSo was also very puzzled, muttering why everyone was talking about me when I only blocked the attack. But suddenly, DeSo got goosebumps when So said from behind him, if it wasn't a coincidence, then show me one more time. After saying that, So immediately ran while swinging his sword at DeSo, wanting to see if DeSo could still withstand his attack. DeSo was seen repeatedly avoiding the sword slashes launched by his brother. DeSo also tried to explain that he didn't do anything but parry it. So also didn't want to give DeSo a chance to counterattack, making DeSo even more desperate. However, everyone present was amazed because no matter how hard the third young master attacked, it was still futile. DeSo thought to himself, he always repeats downward attacks to suppress me. When So attempted to do the same attack by swinging his sword downward, DeSo considered attacking him through the center of his body. At the perfect moment, DeSo immediately thrust his wooden sword at his brother to counterattack. He struck at his elbow, wrist, and ankle, all of which were exposed to his brother's movements. After receiving the attack, So muttered, somehow, I can't muster all my strength in my attack. It felt as if DeSo had already figured out the exact pivot point where the energy should be concentrated. So he blocked my sword by cutting off my attack. It was simply impossible for a martial artist of such low skill to read the movements of a master. In fact, I was certain he would be able to read and block my next attack. But on the other hand, DeSo immediately laughed as everything had fallen into place. Sure enough, DeSo deliberately let go of his sword after being hit by So's slash. Because his sword had been thrown far out of his reach, DeSo said that he had given up and admitted defeat in the fight. Jackyeon really didn't expect that DeSo had lost just like that, even though DeSo had given a very fierce fight. Those who witnessed the fight said, of course, this is how it turned out. The youngest was able to survive this long because the third young master didn't use his ki energy. While laughing, DeSo said, I think I'm just not suited to martial arts, so let me leave the world of martial arts and live a normal life as an ordinary man. But DeSo immediately fell silent when So asked him to stop and not leave the arena with a sharp gaze. So said, how dare you be a cunning weasel and run away from me? Do you think that I don't realize it in his heart? DeSo said, please let me go. Will you not be satisfied until you destroy my dantian? But DeSo was very surprised when So paid his respects to his father and said, oh, the leader, I want to make a request to you. Please allow me to duel again with my youngest brother, using a sword that actually looks like Hankel just stood there, looking at his two sons who were still on the arena. Then Hankel smiled with satisfaction. He said, DeSo, did you hear that? Your brother wanted something like that? DeSo said, oh, father didn't. I lose against him. Besides, I don't have the energy anymore to fight that. I can't even lift my sword. I heard several people there saying that it's true that the youngest has lost. I don't think having another duel will change the fact that the third young master will win. They immediately fell silent, thinking about whether the duel would be repeated or not. Even the strategist couldn't give an answer and just waited for the leader's decision. Then So looked at DeSo with a look full of anger. He said, do you think I will be happy with this fake victory? So raise your sword now. If you refuse, then you will no longer be my little brother, but you will be my enemy. Just so you know, I never let anyone. I consider my enemy survive in front of me. With panic, DeSo thought what he was thinking. Why he became like this? Even though I had admitted defeat, would they only be satisfied if I had lost one of my hands in this place? On the other hand, the strategist said, I feel there is something very suspicious about the youngest. He also said, I don't think this will be suspicious anymore if the fight is repeated in the right way. Then Hankel looked at DeSo, who was still looking for an excuse not to repeat the match. But DeSo's efforts were in vain, because Hankel had agreed to So's request to repeat the match. Then Hankel said, DeSo, if you want to give up, like I said, you just need to accept losing one of your hands. But because you have different abilities, then I will tighten this duel. So you can only clash your swords once, and so you can only use 30% of your Ki energy in this match. Hankel also said to DeSo, are you going to use a wooden sword again? But if you insist on using it, then I will not stop you in annoyance. DeSo muttered, you bastard! This damned clan is just filled with a bunch of idiots who are obsessed with martial arts. So said DeSo, listen to me carefully. If you do something sneaky again, then I swear I will cut off both of your arms right here. So before you act strangely, you better think again. For your safety in his heart, DeSo said. His sword has resonated even with only 30% of his Ki. I can't possibly defeat him because he is a first-rate martial artist, but I don't want to live the rest of my life as a cripple, so I will fight him as best as I can. For the safety of my hands while brandishing his sword. DeSo said, I have to focus, and I only need to block his attack technique once. On the other hand, everyone there was very excited. They were so sure that the third young master would definitely win easily. But it was different with Jaekyun. He desperately gave support to DeSo while waving his proud flag. But what DeSo felt was that he couldn't hear the noisy voices of the audience at all. DeSo said, I don't know since when I can be this focused, to the point that I feel like I can't hear or see anything other than my brother who is in front of me. Without the slightest hesitation, So immediately ran very fast and jumped to start the attack that he launched at DeSo. Even though DeSo felt tense seeing his brother who started the attack, DeSo also thought that his sword attack was not fast, but I couldn't dodge anywhere. But I had to act if I didn't want to lose my hand and become a disabled person. Sure enough, DeSo immediately used the 3 basic sword techniques that he had mastered to ward off his brother's attack. So casually said, it turns out you can still see the attack I launched. Then DeSo did a downward stabbing attack which DeSo showed to his brother, although he was still able to avoid the attack. So was seen jumping while preparing to swing his sword. He said, do you think the same trick will work on me a second time? Panicked, DeSo said, what should I do? This is the only technique I can master. But DeSo also tried to stab his sword to So, who was still jumping in the air using the 3 basic techniques. DeSo thought his brother should not be able to avoid the attack when he was still in the air, seeing DeSo trying to stab him, So immediately used his foot to kick DeSo. But So was very surprised when he saw DeSo had just disappeared from in front of him. So wondered if DeSo had run away from the match to save his hand, even though he was willing to let his pride be trampled on. It turns out that DeSo has used the 3 basic sword techniques that DeSo immediately used, starting from heaven, earth, and also humans. Then DeSo immediately ran towards So to launch his attack called the Sword Emperor's Ultimate Technique. Seeing that, So muttered, so the 3 basic techniques he used were just a trick for a strategy like this. If he could be serious, then I would face him directly using the sword/slash technique of the Destroyer. Sure enough, after their 2 swords had clashed with each other, a flash of light had emitted from the fight between the 2 of them. Even everyone who was there, no one was able to withstand the blow of the wind caused by the explosion of the attack. They looked at it anxiously. Jaein said, "Add a little more strength, and you will definitely win against him." It seemed that DeSo was doing his best to withstand the pressure put on by his older brother in his heart. DeSo said, "In my past life, I lost my dantian, and now I'm going to lose my hand. I will never let this happen to me." At that moment, DeSo's power has increased so rapidly that So was amazed how DeSo could have such great power. Hankel was even interested in the fight between his 2 sons because this was the first time he saw DeSo using his true power. Jaekyeon was so excited when he saw the young master he admired so much had fought seriously to defeat his brother. Not only that, Lehan also said, "How could DeSo do it?" His body was like a vast land, but the land had become a dry desert because his meridians had become tangled. And now thanks to the beautiful rain, namely the 3 basic sword techniques, the barren and dry land had now grown very fertile shoots. While shouting confidently, DeSo said that he would cut off the attack that his brother gave. So looked so depressed when DeSo added strength to the sword he was holding, and at that moment, a sound of a sword cut was heard so loudly that it broke the tension in the arena, and it turned out that DeSo was thrown back after being hit by a sword/launched by So right into his chest. It was seen that the tip of the sword used by So had dripped a lot of blood. Then the examiner announced that the winner of the duel was the 3rd young master. Sure enough, DeSo was lying on the arena, making him immediately unconscious. After seeing DeSo lying there, the medical team immediately ran towards DeSo to examine him as quickly as possible. They said that the wound received by DeSo was very deep, and if it was not done immediately, the situation would become more dangerous. On the other hand, Jaekyeon just kept quiet when he saw the youngest being slaughtered on the arena. Who knows what was in his head seeing his expression? Lehan muttered. He really was a strange person. With a personality like that, usually he wouldn't just keep quiet. Not only Jaekyeon but the strategist and the 2 DeSo brothers, even Hankel just kept quiet. Seeing what happened to the youngest, suddenly at that moment, So immediately swung his sword to injure his left hand. Then So said, "I have used 50% of my KI energy, because the last attack that DeSo did was very unexpected, and this is outside the agreement that father gave that I can only use 30% of my KI. I should be the one bleeding in this fight, and this fight is my defeat." A few moments later, DeSo woke up from his long sleep. DeSo was so shocked because what he saw was not his own bed. DeSo thought whether he was in the hospital. But when DeSo wanted to get up from his bed, DeSo felt that his body was very sore. Then DeSo remembered that his body had been injured due to his fight against his 3rd brother. DeSo proudly said, "Even though I was injured, I was very grateful that I still had both of my hands." From behind him, Jaekyeon said, "Oh my lord, you better lie down and don't move too much. If you continue like that, the wound that we worked so hard to close will open again." DeSo said in annoyance, "You crazy bastard! Do you know that I almost died in the arena because of your behavior?" Hearing that, Jaekyeon just laughed. He said, "I'm sorry, but you still won the fight." DeSo was immediately shocked because DeSo didn't expect how he could win the fight. At that time, Lehan came over to him. Lehan said, "After I heard your voice, it seems like your energy has fully recovered." While pointing at DeSo, asked Lehan what was meant by Jaekyeon's words that I had won against my brother. Lehan also confirmed what Jaekyeon said, that it was DeSo who had won the fight. Lehan said you need to know that after his defeat, So decided to isolate himself in a cave, and he wouldn't come out for 3 years. DeSo still didn't believe what they said, and in his heart, DeSo thought that his victory was very impossible. While showing a scroll, Jaekyeon said that the leader had sent a message regarding a reward for your victory. After receiving the scroll, DeSo immediately opened it to check what was written inside. His eyes immediately widened when he read the contents of the scroll. It turned out that it was written there that DeSo had received permission to enter the 10,000 archive for 3 days. As the name suggests, it is known that the 10,000 archives have 10,000 very valuable martial arts manuals. Among the mountains of books, it is said that there are some treasures that have never been found. And sometimes there are also some people whose martial arts abilities have increased many times over after leaving the 10,000 archives. Jaekyeon proudly said, but of course there are also useless martial arts mixed in there. Because it is a repository of knowledge about martial arts that is not validated. But while laughing, DeSo said, I am not interested at all and I do not need it. So why would I go in there? Suddenly, Jaekyeon was very surprised with annoyance. Jaekyeon said, do you know, everyone wants to go in there but they are not able to, because the competition is very tight. You want to live long by acting like a mouse that pretends to be dead in front of a cat and then hides in the darkness like a petty coward all your life. Seeing DeSo, who is angry with his words, Jaekyeon says again that for now your dream will be very difficult to achieve, because the existence of the young master until now is not even equal to a baby mouse that hides in the darkness. But with the existence of a match, and being able to defeat the third young master, you have been exposed to the ends of the world, so it is certain that you will not be able to return to your peaceful life. Didn't you ever say that you really want to leave this cursed clan? I have a way, and it is very easy. Listen to me carefully to survive in a tiger's cage. Then you must kill and get rid of all the tigers in the cage. Or maybe you have to be the king of all tigers so that they submit to you. So to become a king isn't the best start to increase our troops first. Suddenly DeSo immediately pulled Jaekyeon's shirt so hard, then DeSo said, have you talked? I'm so sick of the nonsense that comes out of your mouth with a sharp gaze, DeSo said again. Listen to what I say. We have to start by beating you up first. A few moments later, Jaekyeon's face was seen battered. After being beaten by DeSo while holding back the pain, Jaekyeon said, oh, young master, I'm really sorry, and I promise not to repeat it again in his heart. DeSo said, you bastard, have all my efforts over the years ended in vain? As long as I'm in this crazy clan, maybe I'll never have the chance to leave this place. The only way for me to survive is to learn martial arts like them and become a power freak with a sharp gaze. DeSo shouted, because the situation has already come to this. I will learn martial arts and become the strongest person in this clan. So let's see whose stomach will get stabbed this time.